growing up in the church, I feel like you tend to hear a lot of sermons that just aren't really well researched. Pastors sometimes get high off their own supply and they don't really realize that some of the things that they're spouting isn't actually biblical. I can think back to the Sandy Mineo lyric when he says, "Unlearning lies I heard in a dumb sermon." And I think a lot of Christians can relate to that. But there's these things that get preached that just end up not getting contextualized, not getting clarified, and they start to weigh you down after a while. And so one of those things that I'm currently in real time struggling with is the idea of depending on God and relying on God, and paired with self-sufficiency and the effort we put into making things happen. And just to clarify, I'm working through this in real time. But I think oftentimes when Christians hear that we should depend on God and something doesn't work, we take that as a cosmic sign that it was never meant to happen, or this isn't the season for it, or whatever. When really, it's just an obstacle to overcome. As we study story structure, there is no story without conflict. And so there is always going to be obstacles that come your way. And sometimes those obstacles are bigger than others and more challenging than others. And I think when people run into those obstacles, it can tend to make people quit too soon. They say, if I'm really depending on God, then this thing would have been a success. So it didn't happen, and so that means God is cosmically against it, and this isn't the will of God in my life, and so I'm going to give up. I'm going to go do something else. In situations like this, everyone should just pray and seek the Lord and what He would have for you in the season that you are in. Maybe you do need to relinquish something. Maybe you do need to give something up for a season. But I also believe that sometimes in our wrestling to hear the voice of God, we put a voice for Him based off of Christian cultural osmosis. And so we can inject what we think God would say rather than really hear what He would say. If you're hitting walls in your creative journey, if you're hitting walls in your career, I just want to encourage you that you will face obstacles. And those obstacles are meant to be overcome for the story that you are playing a part of, the story of your life, and ultimately God's story. How our story is filtering into this. So if you're hitting roadblocks in this season, I understand them, but pray, seek counsel, seek wisdom, and pray for discernment to know whether this is an obstacle that is meant to be overcome, an obstacle to put you at rest, or an obstacle that God has placed before you so that He redirects you to Himself.